Thunderfoot, you raised two interesting points in your previous video. The first of them is the position of Islam vis-a-vis scientific advancement, and you apparently conclude that Islam is an impediment to scientific advancement. The second point that you raise is the nature of criticism to be leveled at Islam versus all other religions or points of view in general. You ask an open question: should Islam be treated any differently from any other religion or point of view in terms of the intensity or the tone of the criticism leveled at it? Well, the first point that you make concerning Islam's effect on scientific advancement is based upon, I presume, judging from your videos, a snapshot of today's world. You look around you and see seemingly incontrovertible evidence that Islam strangles scientific inquiry, i.e., the number of scientists or research scientists and the number of research science papers produced and published in the Islamic world is negligible compared to the rest of the world. Well, that's all very well, and even if I don't argue with that figure that you've raised, among other figures, weapons technology is raised as well. You're making the same fundamental error as those 19th century Europeans that I alluded to in my previous video, who looked around them around about 1880, saw that white people were everywhere dominant in the world, and concluded that white people were inherently superior to non-white people. Now, this is an odious comparison to make, and for the record, I am not calling you a racist. I am not saying that you are one of these white people who believes that white people are inherently superior. But what I'm saying is you're using the very same methodology, the very same flawed methodology. I would have said to these white Europeans, in order for you to actually prove your hypothesis that white people are better, you're going to have to go beyond just today and go back throughout the entirety of history, the history of the existence of the various races, which they, of course, did not do. So, in the same vein, if you're going to say that Islam is an impediment to scientific advancement, well, Islam has been around for about 1400 years. You're going to have to prove that it has always been an impediment to scientific advancement because Islam has been around that long, which you have not done either. And I would put to you that your hypothesis is actually a historical hypothesis. It's not about science, because Islam has been around for a long period of recorded history. And if you're going to say that Islam per se is an impediment to scientific advancement, you're going to have to show that it has been so throughout the entirety of its history, which you have signally failed to do. So I think that your argumentation is flawed from the very start. Secondly, should Islam be afforded more consideration in terms of its debatability in the marketplace of ideas, that is the internet or the general public discourse? I would answer a categorical no. Ideas are out there to be discussed. I do not support any restrictions on freedom of speech. I don't support any laws limiting freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of press, freedom of conscience. I'm not advocating anything like that. Having said that, I would say that when you're comparing Western religion with Islamic traditions, you're comparing apples and oranges. Western religious tradition, especially since the Reformation, has developed in the marketplace of ideas. It has developed in the idea that there's always been competition between various faiths, and each faith would have to make its own case in terms of its validity vis-a-vis each other religion. And since the Enlightenment, the very idea of religion has been under attack. Voltaire, writing 250 years ago was absolutely scathing in his attack on religion. And ever since, the debate has gotten more and more strident. So even our fundamentalist religious people are used to this sort of debate. They're used to having their ideas held up to withering scrutiny. Now, this is very new in the Islamic world. In many ways, the Islamic world has existed in a cultural cocoon for a very long period of time. They never went through the Enlightenment. They never went through the Renaissance. They never went through all the great openings which our society went through. This is not to say that they are incapable of such things, but a civilization, an entire mindset, can only move so fast. What I'm saying is, you may have the right to vilify Islam. You may have the right to say whatever you like about somebody's religious point of view. But what I would ask anyone doing so is, what is your goal here? Is your goal to bring Islam into the modern discourse where it is debated like any other idea intelligently and with an actual purpose to that debate, in which case it's best not to automatically start with the vilification, because all that does is it drives people who might be inclined to listen to you back into insular, reactionary fundamentalism. That's just how human nature works. If, however, you engage people in a debate that is reasonable, polite, and restrained, they will listen to you. They might not be convinced. In fact, I think that there's a lot of them who will not be convinced by your arguments, but the very fact that their basic assumptions are being argued won't bother them as much as just some disgusting vilification. Because they will at least understand that what you are attempting to do is get to the bottom of things. You're not just throwing mud. Now, the other way in which I think that the debate around Islam is different, and I'm not, to be perfectly honest, interested in naming names or proving my case in this. It's just my own personal opinion that I have no interest in promoting to anyone else. I don't believe, as I said, Thunderfoot, that you are racist. I cannot say that about everyone who is attacking the Islamic faith. People can deny all they like, but when I hear what they say about Islam and cross-reference that with what they've said elsewhere, I will draw my own conclusions. These conclusions are my own, and I have no interest in propagating them. But my nostrils pick up the distinct whiff of bigotry, of racism, of chauvinism, of just plain old xenophobia in the debate centering on the criticism of Islam. It's hiding. It's a version of atheist taqiyya, if you ask me, where people throw all kinds of horrible mud at Islam and then say, oh, no, this is all just atheism. It has nothing to do with bigotry. Again, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to point any fingers. I'm not even interested in proving my case. This is my opinion and my opinion only. When people say that the debate centering on Islam has nothing to do with racism and everything to do with atheism, I simply don't believe them. I remain unconvinced. Thank you.